Welcome to the meeting of the Capital Outlay Committee. Today's Friday, September 30th at 10 a.m. And as we start every minute, can we start around the horn, Mark?
Kelleher, representative from the Finance Committee.
Karen Doucette, also representing Finance Committee.
Ann Clark-Tucker, representative planning.
Rich Larius, Town Administrator's Rep.
Martha Donovan, Select Board's rep.
Good. Okay, so we have a very long agenda today, but I have to get some paperwork done first. Number one is I want to welcome Ann Clark-Tucker as our newest member, number 5 out of 7. We have 2 more to go to have a whole committee and a full complement, so I want to thank Ann for joining us. Secondly, we normally, the chairman of every committee does what I have called for the past 10 or 15 years, the State of the Union. And the State of the Union is where does this committee stand? And it's reported to the Board of Selectmen. My lucky date is October 24th. And if you have any input, you can email me. What I have to report on is a brief highlight of last year. That's a good one. A list of committee members, the organization of the committee. Question is, are we posting agenda and meetings? Are the members sworn in and state ethics testing up to date? Does your committee charge need review and updating? What does your committee need? Assistance, support, finding members. And they want to know member attendances and absentees. So this is something that I will create and present on October 24th. So if you have any input for me, or you have any notes that you think is relevant to your certain situation, please let me know. And in doing so, the next item that we have is to vote and approve the following minutes, meeting minutes, and there are 7 meetings going back to December 11th, 2020. So let me start. Number 1, December 11th, 2020, November 16th, 2021, November 30th, 2021, December 16th, 2021, January 13th, 2022, February 2nd, 2022, and March 14th, 2022. And as we've done in the past, these are been updated by the group that is doing the audio of the meetings and presenting the minutes. So can I have?
I'll make a motion to approve all of those dated minutes.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Good. It's unanimous. So now we'll go to old business, and the old business is to review and discuss the applications, and we're saying applications for facilities maintenance, and so that everyone really understands what the applications are. These are capital request forms that are filled out by each department, and in this case, we are reviewing facilities management or facilities maintenance under Sean Libby. So may I introduce Sean Libby
Nice to meet you, Sean.
and Lincoln Cooper, who is the department head. It's all yours, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interject.
Surely.
Good morning. Hi, Joe Powers, Town Administrator. And I say that for the benefit of the viewing audience. I just want to explain the reason why I'm sitting amongst the committee members. I am not, nor have I ever been, nor do I ever intend to be a member of the Capital Outlay Committee. But I'm sitting here so we can give space to our DPW Director, Lynn Cooper, our Facilities Maintenance Manager, Sean Libby, and I just want to remind the committee that the 3 of us are presenting this morning. I'll certainly defer to them to the expertise questions, any questions of policy or procedure, I'd love to be able to answer that. And then last but by no means least, it's great to have you, Ms. Clark Tucker, on this committee. And yes, Mr. Chairman, I still look for my second appointment, and the board is still looking for their second appointment. So we are still striving to get this committee fully constituted. So with that, thank you and good morning, folks, and we stand ready to present. I'd like to start just by saying for fiscal year 2024, you can see in the updated plan that there are 5 items contemplated under facilities maintenance for fiscal year 2024. There are currently 4 projects that are added in the outlying 5th year of fiscal year 2028. And lastly, I have re-engineered the form to have it reflect facilities maintenance, as committee members have been hearing me say, and for the benefit of Ms. Clark Tucker, you'll see at the bottom of the page of the handout that I'm really trying to parse this plan in different ways. That is to say, we're staring down the barrel of a $73+ million ask at present for the capital outlay plan, and that is in large part to major infrastructure projects related to water and wastewater, as well as specifics on facilities maintenance, and then beyond that, it's really vehicles and some other stuff. Meaning, aside from the large infrastructure projects and facilities maintenance, the rest of the capital outlay budget presently for fiscal year '24 is coming in at just under $2.5 million, which is well under annual averages, so there we are.
What's the scope of facilities maintenance? Maybe, Sean, you could go through that.
I couldn't hear the question.
The scope of facilities maintenance.
I'll defer to the
Like how-
director
where's
and
it
the
start and end
manager.
In terms of your responsibility? Is it all the whole building?
Yes.
Including like cabling for IT and all that stuff?
No. So that would be, you know, a specific request from IT, but any structure or part of the infrastructure that currently exists, if there's new stuff, that would come from that department requesting.
So if, okay, and I'll ask, I guess I'll curious of where that fits later, because I know that some of the buildings aren't fully okay.
And Joe, you sent us in advance the list of all of the facilities that Sean and Link would need.
So, thank you, no. That's not, and I will explain that later.
Okay,
No,
sorry.
and that's on me. What I've given is a reflection, for lack of a better word, of what I consider to be physical plant. So physical plant would be any of the buildings, as well as many of the
This is
grounds
pretty much
that
it.
we have.
But there's more.
That list that I shared with you folks is not complete, but it's meant to represent a lot of the key items in that. And at the conclusion of this, Mr. Chair, if you feel that there's time, I would like to just explain that. That's something that I've just recently shared with the DPW director and the facilities maintenance manager, because I don't think we've tracked it in that way. So this is me trying to use better language of what is meant by physical plant. And again, in the form that you have, I define that as buildings, grounds, and other structures. So more on that later in this meeting.
Thank you.
So yours, Shannon?
So I think the open-ended question is, what do you do?
Well, anything that's part of the town's, as he said, building grounds, there's many ancillary little buildings, like there's bathrooms, the beach bathrooms, they're not listed here as part of the physical plant, but that is something that we do maintenance and repairs to. You know, stairs for the beaches, other small things, bike lights, but mainly it's the buildings themselves and the equipment that goes with them.
You guys do some install too, is that a different, like on the bathrooms and things, sometimes you install them instead of subbing it out, right?
Not so much the construction of, so, like you mentioned bathrooms, right now, currently, there was a bathroom request to go out for a prefab a concrete building.
Yeah.
We would do the prefab for the foundation, so we'd work with it, something to set the bathroom on top of.
Yeah, okay.
But there was
I
a,
was thinking the, I don't know what that building, the thing with the picnic tables under it, like, did you guys put that up?
we put it up, it was a prefab,
Yeah,
again, that was
yeah.
a prefab awning.
Yeah, okay. Just curious.
It's smaller in
Smaller.
nature.
Yeah.
We can take care in-house, but Sean's only got a very small crew of 3
Oh, I'm aware,
people,
yeah.
so we can't be in the construction industry for facilities.
No, and I
also.
know, and I hearing something coming that they're assuming you guys are doing, but,
Whenever we're able to bring stuff in-house and do, we try to, because it's usually in the best interest of the taxpayers for us to do it in-house versus hiring out.
okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, given the fact that it's a multiple
Any,
task from the very small to the very large, today we're addressing the 10 or 12 capital requests that you have investigated, put together.
Right.
And what's in front of us. So that's what we're doing today. So
Okay.
start on the first one.
So, Mr. Chairman, as they go through the materials, I can tell you that the first line item, 100 Oak Street Community Center, fiscal year 2024 is a request for $108,400, and that is replacement of items in the gymnasium at the community center. If memory serves correctly, that's specifically the pull-out bleachers and some related items. You may recall that this came up during the discussion in fiscal year '23.
Right.
And so we, meaning administration board and this committee, opted to hold off in '23 because although it's necessary, it was not emergent.
Generator.
Okay, so the 108,
400.
the 108,400 isn't actually a task that you are physically going to do.
Correct, it will be contracted out.
Right, okay. Good, okay. And then it goes, what is the 325 and the 653?
325 fiscal year 2025 is AC replacement. In last year's plan, it was 295,000, excuse me. It is now 295,000 for the AC replacement, and that's up from the original cost of 180,000. And an additional 30,000 for weight room equipment. And again, last year, that was presented by the community center director. Again, that's an item that she wants to do going forward, but we've pushed it out to fiscal year '25.
Question. In the town meeting last year, we had an item for the green communities.
Yeah.
Is that here, or is that already passed and approved?
That is actually currently underway. The Green Communities project that was requested for last year was split. Green Communities grant is gonna provide some of the money. That was for a boiler replacement and the 40-ton air conditioning unit, which is for the main air conditioning unit for this building. These 2 condensing units are for the other sides, the recreation side of the building and the council on aging. There's 3.
Oh, I see, so you have a central,
There's a main
AC.
large 40-ton unit, and then there's 2 10-ton units on each side.
so,
Those times, set just like everything else I do is under ASHRAE standards. The life expectancy for these are about 18 to 20 years.
Okay.
We're into the 24th year now, so.
okay, so the 325 are for the wings.
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you. I was confused on that.
Can you continue across? Or Joe,
Okay, so we're going
653?
across all the way. So 653 in fiscal year 27. And that includes, that is the roof that's been on there for years. We've been sliding because the roof's pretty good condition. That is the roof for 485. And then the generator, same thing, that has been on there. We've been sliding that year after year for up to 168, a replacement cost now.
So this mentions in here when there's a power outage, the community center may be used. What do we do now? Like it says during a power outage, so for the generator, sorry, I'm looking at the community center generator replacement, and on
Yes.
the benefit, it says during a power outage, the community center may be used as a warming. Do we use that now for,
Yes,
okay,
it may be used. It's not open every time it's needed, but it may be used.
Yeah, the last major snowstorm we had, we relied upon Brooks Free Library as a warming center.
got it, yeah.
For several reasons, not the least of which was proximity to town hall.
Quick question, because the generators don't run that often, they may have a test period maybe once a week. What's the longevity of a generator in the sense that it's not like a diesel engine on a truck that you can get 400,000 or 500,000 miles out of? So Just explain that so we understand.
South Shore Generator has given me a life expectancy about 20 years.
Even though it's not run that much, just the way.
Because it's not run that much, exactly that reason, because it's not running under load, it isn't running to its capacity, so, they say that if it was running under load continuously, it would get more hours of use out of it.
Okay.
Is a better way of putting it.
And how old did you say it is, Sean? Or
20
maybe you didn't,
23 years old.
so it's already 23. Okay, cool.
Mark, I'd like to add that those generators all start up full tilter. Like you wouldn't start your own automobile or your diesel truck in that manner. So when they start up, they are all the way wide open, no warm up. That puts a lot of wear and tear that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a vehicle you're driving because it only runs for 20 minutes or half an hour.
And then, are they natural gas?
All of them, with the exception of the fire department and transfer station.
Or natural gas?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Great explanation, because, you know, I see them run for 20 minutes, and then I'm saying, why do you need a replacement? But, thank you. This is very helpful, and I hope for the audience, too.
And I believe that the facilities manager mentioned the rates. I just want to emphasize that the original quote, or excuse me, a quote, but the original dollar amounts we were looking at for the generator was $140, so it's now up to $168. The roof was originally $264, it's now up to $485. And again, we're seeing the impacts of supply chain issues and everything else going on in the marketplace.
Quick question. 30-year shingles, or do they have, is that what you normally get?
Those are 30 on the roof current.
And is that what you usually use for replacement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know they have some upgrade, but we won't be here by the time we get there.
Okay. Cranberry Valley?
So Sean, my notes on that one are, it is a new add to the plan. This is a request from Roman through Sean, and it is to replace the Pro Shop air conditioning unit
Correct.
in fiscal year 2026. So it is new to the
I
plan.
had it in 28.
Say again?
I was just telling Sean, it's on his plan. He had it in 28. It moved up a couple of years.
26. Oh, that's last
Does that
year's.
come out of their fund or the general fund?
I think in that instance, yeah, the funding source will be able to come from the golf
Road.
thing that they call it. And to that question, Mr. Chairman, funding, I would imagine for all of us, will be a dedicated meeting conversation before we present to the board on December 5th, so.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about, not necessarily the AC for the golf course, but there's a ton of other stuff going on up there. It's not represented on this plan. Like, have they submitted anything for the repairs that need to be done for the deck or the stairs and everything?
I actually have that on my list. It's not a capital item, that's why you don't see it.
So we're not replacing anything up there, we're just
No,
repairing?
Repairing, correct.
There's nothing else they've asked you for?
They haven't asked me. I didn't want to notice the decking this summer. And we have some soffit repairs and some roofing repair over that porch area.
So that
It's all repairs.
That's all
That coming
repairs.
under my
They
maintenance
haven't
budget.
come back and said, we're thinking about, and the reason I ask, and this is relevant, I think, to Brooks Academy, to Sisson Road, to everything, is we can talk about individual items here, but, and I sent you a request, Rich and Joe, I think it got forwarded to you. I would like to understand the, not from you guys, because I know this isn't in your realm, but the bigger picture in terms of, what are they planning to do up there? Because there's been some talk about that building, the clubhouse isn't great, or whatever, this is just an example. And I just don't know if there's a plan in 5 years to replace something like that, and it's not showing anywhere, but I guess I'm interested in learning more about what's in their head or their plan. They must have some additional plans that we just don't have visibility to.
So for me, the natural point of that conversation is when you talk to golf on their capital request, because right now they've got a sizable request in fiscal year 2025 on the
Yeah.
irrigation system. So when you talk about that, that would be, I think, the most opportune time to say, what else are you working on? what else do you envision?
Yeah, so some of the facilities I won't be prepared to make a vote on until I hear from the golf people. I don't know what their titles are, but, sorry, and like, even on, in Sisson Road, like about what's the plan for that, bigger plan for the building and the auditorium and the kitchen and all that stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that people are talking, at least you hear about, that's on the docket that I don't see represented, and I don't know how we get a picture of that, but I wouldn't approve this until I understood more about that.
Sure.
Let me put an asterisk on that. We were sent out, I think, either in the bylaws, greater, 50,000 or greater is gonna be listed. So if it's under 50, you're not gonna see it.
I understand.
So, well, that's the reason why it doesn't appear here. That's the reason why Sean doesn't put it down, nor any department head. So if they're working on, if they have an operating budget, or if they have a, I'm not gonna say a facilities management budget, but if they have a capital budget and any one of their expenses, and you can, just like Joe just mentioned about the golf department, if anything is less than $50,000, we're not gonna see it.
Oh, I understand that. So my point would be is if Roman's thinking about in year 6, so our plan goes out 5 years, if he's thinking in year 6, let's build a new clubhouse, I would question anything we put into that building ahead of time that's capital oriented. Why would you put a new AC in? Could you do something else to keep that one humming for a while? Those are the questions I want to know, and I think that's a fair question to ask them, because that's the context I think we need. Just like at Sisson Road or Brooks Academy, I don't understand the full scope of what's going on at Brooks Academy, past, present, or future, but if it, you can approve lots of stuff year over year, but if the total is, if you add all that up and it's excessive, that might provide a different perspective for this town. So that's where my head's at. And I understand the 50 grand, I get all that, but I also think there's a way to get through some stuff without giving you the full picture, and I think this town deserves the full picture on some of these things.
Okay, well, we'll talk to the department heads on that.
Yeah, no, fair, good.
If we're now looking at 183 Sisson Road Public Safety Complex, the two items that you can see there, they're highlighted because they were not on the last plan, so these are additions. First, you can see in fiscal year 2025, that is a project to remove the decorative brick walkway and cobblestone, reinforce the subbase, and reinstall the bricking. And then in fiscal year 28, it is to replace all windows at Fire Station 1. So again, that's the fire station side of the building at 183 Sisson Road. With that, any questions, the facilities maintenance manager is ready, willing, and able to answer.
Sean, how old are the windows?
At the fire station?
Yeah.
Let's see, that would be 28, 6 years old?
They're 6 years old,
26.
26.
You're 26?
They're the
26
Are they
years
the
old.
original windows?
They are the original windows,
This is the fire station only, not
Correct.
the police.
not the police.
The police is still good.
Police is only,
I'm just,
I believe police is 12 years old, so they're still good.
Don't look at me, I look at the fire station as still a new building.
Pete Watson would agree with you.
Yes, sir. Rest his soul.
Okay.
Quick question, are those windows, are they wood clad?
Yes.
Okay, so that explains it. And when you do a replacement, would they be wood, or could you do some vinyl or some
No, we could do
lasting
some
material?
vinyl, double insulated, we definitely go something that was more energy efficient.
Right,
And that would last through the deterioration of the sun that they have on the back wall.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's all on the southern wall that's mostly getting deteriorated.
And we're gonna get through 28, 228 to get,
I think so.
okay, little caulk.
We've had to do some repairs recently, some caulking and some, but I think we can keep them going.
Okay,
Good.
The decorative brick, you didn't ask, but the reason that was moved up is a safety item. It's actually begin to sink, and we're at a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in variation of, so it become a tripping hazard.
Sean, when you do projects like that, like, is it water intrusion that's causing the issue, or?
For which, the
for
brick or the?
Is it
I think it's just normal settling.
Okay, okay. I'm just
Yeah.
curious if you
Dry,
pick,
right?
do you have to fix the
Yeah.
water issue first?
Right.
Okay,
I see what you're saying.
They were
but no.
just dry set.
Okay.
So there was never a base. This will take care of that
I see,
issue.
okay, okay.
204 Sisson Road.
Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The old middle school. So, please indulge me for a moment to try to set the narrative.
Good luck, Joe.
Thank you. First, that building is a municipal building. I reemphasize that, not necessarily for this committee, but staff have asked about zoning implications and things like that. There are no zoning implications on that building because any municipal building that's used for general municipal purposes and the present uses and the contemplated uses fall within that are all allowed under the zoning bylaw. Think of it this way, the town zoning bylaws allow the town to have their buildings do what they want wherever they are. It is a municipal building. It presently holds one department, and the department is the Director of Cultural Affairs, Kara Mawini, our new director who started July 6th of this year. And so she is the subject matter expert that is working with the tenants that are in there, the artisans and other cultural affairs folks. She is also the town's primary point person as we pursue the designation of not one, but the two cultural centers in town, both of which will have a nexus around Sisson Road. And so, Sean, Link, and I are here to talk about the building structure needs and things of that nature. I will remind everybody that the Board of Selectmen have a standing vote that was reaffirmed last fiscal year, that the old middle school, the former middle school, and the reason why I've chosen that verbiage is because in a moment you're gonna hear about, or in future projects, you're gonna hear about the old rec building. So we have a history of calling them old buildings. It is the old middle school, and the board's vote in 2016 was to continue to use that building for all municipal purposes, including cultural events and others. The board reaffirmed that last fiscal year. It's my understanding, and again, we'll have a discussion throughout the fall of this year and also on December 5th when you folks meet jointly with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee to see whether the board's gonna revisit that. But my directive has been clear from the board. That building, it should be contemplated to be used in fiscal year '24 in the manner in which it's been used in past years. So it's a policy decision from the Board of Selectmen presently. With regard to potential revenue to be generated, that is presently generated and can be generated in the future, I have tasked Ms. Mawini to analyze that for the entire building. However, she will be joined by other department heads, meaning there's a gymnasium there. So Mr. Beebe and I will discuss the gymnasium portion of that from a revenue standpoint. And I am anticipating having that conversation with the Board of Selectmen at one of their meetings in November of this fall. And then, of course, would share it with Capital Outlay and FinCom after the board's discussion.
So are you saying, Joe, that we won't know if there's capital requests coming for, say, the gym, the auditorium, and the kitchen until after those discussions?
Any of those building requests would come through facilities maintenance. They wouldn't come through the Cultural Affairs Director because it doesn't support cultural affairs directly. Or even if it does, it's a building issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So would the Director of Cultural Affairs, if she needs to use the theater, the auditorium, but she needs work done, she would submit requests to the DPW?
Correct.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is, at that point, should we expect, I'm expecting now then a revision to the capital plan based on the outcome of that work? Because if they say they want to use the theater, the kitchen, or the auditorium in next year, there's got to be work done to all those areas which would drive costs.
So respectfully, no, the only part of the building that we can't presently use is the kitchen. The auditorium has and is in use. The green room, as they call it, which is the music room past the auditorium,
Yeah.
but before the gymnasium, has and will be used, and the gymnasium has and will be used. So the only portion of the building that is not currently in use is the kitchen itself.
But if, let's say, there's a, okay, I understand that, so let's say, but it's feasible to think that those areas, the auditorium and the gym are pretty old, so they might come with some, say, some request to bring it more up to date.
Correct. One of the things that she's working on in her job description are grants. Grants generally for the town. Many of our department heads are already familiar with grants that support their programs. So Kara is the natural person on my behalf to see grants that are available that may impact upon programs there. So that's part of the revenue discussion that we'll have in November. So that could lead to revisions of the plan.
Yeah, but the grants, I'm more concerned with if we don't get a grant, right? If she wants to do something next year and we can't assume the grant will come through, and therefore it would have to come on the capital request, just like anything else.
Not
And then
necessarily.
the funding source would
That
have.
building has a revolving fund capacity of up to 250?
Yes.
So we can rely upon those revolving funds if we have to impact upon grant application or matches in the short term.
Yeah, but if, I got it, okay. All right.
So a couple items before Mr. Libby speaks. First, for fiscal year 2024, the figure of $1,510,000 was moved from fiscal year 26 to 24. Mr. Libby can speak to the philosophy on that, which I totally support. I also want to emphasize that that figure was $1,160,000 from 26 moved to 24. And additionally, new to the plan is $350,000 for a fire alarm system. So I'm gonna start with that one. The town has been using this building, and Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, I know it came back to the town in September 1st, 2014, but we've been using it actively since 2016, correct?
That would be my recollection.
So, fire alarm system has always needed upgrades. Mr. Libby, I think, has very wisely prioritized to say, look, we're gonna continue to use these buildings with people in them. We have to commit to upgrading the fire alarm system. So those are the items for fiscal year 2024. I can certainly speak to the other line items, but I thought you might wanna have questions starting in 24.
It's fire alarm plus what else? No.
The fire alarm, it's.
What's the 1.5?
The,
The 1.5 is the total of 1.16
Which is,
million.
which is
What's the 1.1 for?
4.
1.1, which was in 26, that was approved last town meeting, was moved up to this year, and that includes the boilers, which I've been pushing off for years. One of them in May, when we were going to shut off the system, actually the boiler cracked. It's no longer in use. We're down to one boiler now. So the priority is, if this one doesn't work, then we're out.
Right,
So now it's time to have them replaced. They had to move up.
2 boilers?
2 boilers and the domestic hot water boiler.
Okay.
What's
It
the-
also-
what-
Sorry, if I could, I thought we had updated the form, only because words matter, but in my packet, I see a DPW facilities request dated August 24th that says cultural center upgrades, building improvements.
We updated that to
Okay,
204
so I'll make
Sisson
sure,
Road.
so
There's
that
a-
now says 204 Sisson, but
Okay.
that's the material that he's speaking to about the upgrades and all that, so if you
There's a
have that
couple of
available.
dupes in the
Yeah, I was
packet,
gonna
Joe.
say.
There's 3 on Sisson Road, like, there's some dupes at the end of the packet, I think.
So it, like, it got
'Cause this one
inserted
says-
maybe for other, I thought it was a roof, but like.
I went through them
it
all, and
was
there's definitely
repetitive.
dupes at the end of the packet,
All
but
right, so I know that for 24, we have fire alarm system and upgrades. And that captures that line. Then we have
general
future
repairs.
application, or applications for future use on slate roof, restoration of the rear of the building, and general repairs.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah, they're all
May I
different years.
just-
Please.
How many boilers are working now?
2.
2. And can the building run on 1?
No, because of the way the building was constructed, domestic hot
So
water.
this winter, because we're looking at 24, we're disregarding 23, because it's not on the plan.
Correct.
So in 23, if one boiler goes down, the building goes down, then nobody's allowed in the building.
Correct.
So do we have an emergency response to that?
No.
Okay. So is there any way to find out from Mr. Boiler replacement guy, how long does it take and what is the cost? If you can't fix it,
Yes, I currently have a request into Rise Engineering for a engineering survey specifically for that.
yep,
They're backlogged. I've been waiting 6 weeks before I even started writing this. I was hoping to have an answer to that question. How long, how much? I don't have it. So I took an estimate from our boiler replacement at the community center. Looking at is basically the same size boiler that we're replacing. That's where these numbers come from.
so Joe, if one of the two go down and the building has to be closed, is there a plan to put everybody on a bus and go somewhere? Like
Where-
Fort Myers or someplace like that? There you can buy a building cheap. Or get a boiler,
So
get a
the-
boiler cheap.
The answer on the record is no. We have not developed that plan of action yet. And I will tell you, as I cross my fingers, that while I was a brunette when I started here, you can now see my hair color.
You're talking to somebody,
Meaning, Sean and I, Link and I, we talk about that all the time with all of our buildings. Any number of them are of certain ages where anything can happen. As we were reminiscing before the meeting, acts of God can happen. So we stand ready to react and respond as necessary. That's the long answer. The short answer is Ms. Mawiney, as a as a town employee, would have to be provided office space in the short term. I have the ability to have her work remotely, as everyone did during pandemic, and we would have to find another place for her. With regard to the tenants, sorry, I'm gonna stop crossing my fingers. With regard to the tenants, the town has a clause in every one of their lease agreements that the town has the right to give them 30 days notice to terminate the lease. There's also language in there about acts of God. So if the building had to be shuttered for a moment, that means that no people would be allowed in the building. We would certainly encourage them to take any possessions or things that aren't gonna do well in a building without the boiler system, that they should do that. So the first responsibility is to the town hall employee, excuse me, I keep saying that,
The
to the
town.
town employee.
So does it make sense, or would it be practical to take one of those boilers and put them in fiscal year '23? So that if you could act quickly, the money would be there to do that, and with lead times, you could move it up instead of waiting until fiscal year
So we
'23?
could contemplate that, the appropriation for that then would still be on May 1st, 218 days from today, meaning the special within the annual. So if we had to.
Explain that, sorry, I don't think I understood.
Special
that.
within that.
So when you're in the midst of a fiscal year, if you don't have appropriation, more often than not, an appropriation has to happen.
Oh, I see.
Appropriations can only happen through town meeting, so we would do a special within the annual, and the concept there would be if we had to do work of any nature, we would be seeking appropriation. However, the town has other funding sources that we may be able to rely upon. And again, I'm referencing it because we haven't touched it yet to any great degree, but there is a revolving fund that I now have the authority under the Attorney General's approval of the bylaw to empower both Mr. Libby or Ms. Mawiney to use that either for the benefit of the building or the benefit of her program. So, yep, if we had to do it, we could do a special within the annual. If we had an urgent emergency need, as we often do with buildings, we could do other things as well.
I have a couple of questions. So I'm looking at, just for reference, I'm looking at the request that says 1.160 million, which is part of the
Yes.
1.5 for fiscal year '24, just for everybody who's looking at this stuff. So I have it says, replace inoperative generator and transfer switch with new ones,
Yes.
and then begin window replacement. So I would like to know a few things. So the cost breakdown of the generator versus the switch versus the windows, and I'm really interested in starting window replacement. How many windows are we talking about versus how many are in the building?
They all need to be replaced eventually.
No, I know that part. So if you could break down that cost, and then when you get to the windows, if you tell me how many windows are we talking about replacing out of how many?
Well, not knowing, we don't have an exact cost for the windows. We're looking at prioritizing the windows as the ones that are in the front, not the ones that open sideways as a beginning. And,
So that's the
What-
old
yeah.
section of the building that. what is it- what
correct,
do we
the
call
old
that?
section, which would be the old office spaces, and above it would be the library.
Okay.
We had to go there today to shut windows because they can't shut them themselves. The tenants can't shut them.
What,
The rain
what year are you in for this one, for the windows?
This is next year.
Next year?
Yeah,
This
that's
is-
part of the 1.5 on fiscal year '24. How many windows you talking about, Chuck, that are included in that cost?
That's not what Joe just said. The 1.5, is the fire alarm and the boilers.
Boilers.
And also on the boilers.
It says it on the sheet.
It's on the sheet. That's why it was called building improvements. It's boilers, domestic hot water and heat, and replace inoperative generator, transfer switch, and new window replacement.
Right.
It's on your paper.
So, Sean, how many windows are we talking about replacing in this amount of money? Included in this lump of money?
Two dozen.
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly a couple dozen, yes.
And is there money in the forward years and outer years for the rest of the windows?
Yes,
And that's in here now?
it is.
Oh, that's in there now, okay, that's awesome.
I ask a quick question, Sean. There's a request for bids for this, public bidding for the generator, for the furnace. You only have one operable furnace, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to get the bid in and get it installed before the winter?
No.
No, that's what we
That's not
just.
happening
Not
this
not
year.
this year.
Well, so
not
you're really
possible.
stuck if,
We are stuck, that's,
Okay.
That was my
Alright.
question
Yeah, that's
about,
what we
what do you
want.
do?
okay.
Can you move
So
it
you're
up
stuck. Okay, because
somehow?
I saw the request for proposal.
normally, yeah, I realize that. So, when we talking, if it doesn't work, the only thing that we wouldn't be able to do a repair to is if it cracked like the boiler that did last year. That's not very common. Usually we can find repairs. And we can also steal parts off of the one that did crack last year.
Okay.
So it is old. Parts are hard to come by, but we can take the parts off of the one that's now inoperative. It's been blanked off, so it won't leak anymore. So the thing is, we're just relying on this one boiler. If it does have a catastrophic failure, which is a crack, then we'd be hurt. But otherwise, I think we'd be able to keep up.
Is
And
that
that one boiler
building-
does the whole facility?
Yes,
Is that building sprinkler?
yes.
So that's a real concern for the winter, I could see that. When you do get and this is looking ahead, when you do get your furnaces in, do you have an energy management system so that you can, like, if there's nobody in the building, you can lower the temperature? Do you have that ability to?
Not in that building. That building is extremely old, and we don't have any of that. We have it in most of our other buildings.
Yeah.
Town hall, fire department, police department, community center, but not in that building.
Would you, at some point,
At some point in the future, if we continue to use it, depending on how it's being used, absolutely. If it's being used for, as it is now with tenants, I wouldn't generally go that way because to have the town controlling the temperature inside tenants' rooms, I'm sure they want to have some control over that.
yeah,
But definitely if it's used as a town hall, municipal building, where, the town's looking out after municipal employees, then I absolutely would.
just one more question. The roof repair, that's the slate roof.
Correct.
Do you have a flat roof over the newer
We
section?
do. The flat roof is rubberized and it's actually in very good condition.
Okay, and how old is it? Roughly.
91.
All right, so could be at some point in time, but okay, all right.
Joe, do you plan on moving any other employees into that building besides the Director of Cultural Affairs in this next year?
I've contemplated it, I don't know yet. I've talked before about the special town meeting. I believe it's Article 6 would give me funding for the position of surveyor.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know that when the town moved away from the surveyor position and went to a vendor, arrangements were made to reduce office space. I need a surveyor to get an engineer, and I know the engineer has significant equipment issues. So, I've been talking to Sean and some of the tenants to advise them that if necessary, we would have to move people around or perhaps terminate leases, because the first priority for that municipal building is municipal use. So right now, I'm contemplating that if I'm successful, and that's a big if only because of the strains on the marketplace for both of those positions. But if we can do that within fiscal year '23, I'm looking at having them over there at that building. But I haven't fully vetted that, and that's a conversation with collective bargaining groups as well as human resources. But that is the biggest inn that has rooms presently.
Are they, they're not equipped with any kind of network or Wi-Fi or anything like that, so how do the people work over there?
So they've been using, is it Comcast Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's been a workaround for Ms. Mawini. As you'll see later on in the plan, there's still that big band of yellow for information technologies.
Yeah.
Sarah Eaton knows that there will be, I expect additional requests on the information technology side of it, so network,
that's what I was-
cloud and all of that. But I don't know yet because Sarah hasn't completed her plan. And she's a great find, so I want to give her some space. But she knows she'll be coming before you folks this fall.
Okay, great.
But that's front and center, Karen, on some of the stuff we're dealing with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think practically, given where the building's at, how do we,
Yep.
what else is coming?
Can I ask a question about the boiler?
Yes.
You know, I kind of think of myself in my own home when, you know, the oil tank went, and I was like, God, I really would prefer gas in my old house. But it was like an emergency, and I had to make that decision really quick. Would you make any different decision if you didn't have the situation where you had a boiler? Like, would there be a different type of boiler, you know, splitting it up between two sections? Would it be the same decision?
It would, because the building's already constructed and the size of the pipes and the way the pipes are laid out throughout the building.
It would make sense. Okay, all right, thank you.
What's, this one, the one I'm looking at now is general repairs, which is 185 grand.
Yes.
Fiscal year '26?
This
Well,
one.
are we still on the 1,000,005, or are we done with that one?
Oh, we're on that whole line item, but okay, we can stay on that 1,000,005 if you want.
So Sean, I'm
I'd
sorry,
like to
I
move
don't mean to
on.
cut in. One totally brand-new generator, is that correct? There's no generator at all there?
There is a generator that is there that is inoperable.
Inoperable, okay.
So I was hoping to use the generator from, a number of years ago, this is on the capital plan, I was hoping to reuse the generator that came from the old Station 2, the old Fire Station 2. It wasn't sized properly, and we would've had to change everything, cabling. So now I'm hoping to reuse the same cables.
Got a question. If it's in a pecking order of a matter of importance, a generator, is a generator justified for that building?
Absolutely. We had a freeze last winter. When we lost power for 3 days, we had a freeze up. If we wouldn't have been in the building at the time when the freeze actually released and it thawed, we would have flooded out 2 floors.
Okay. And what other buildings are in that
That same-
predicament with no generator?
We have got Brooks Academy
There were some-
and the Harbor Master, and that's it.
Because I know generators have been a key issue for the past years, and who gets the generator and why. So I'm just asking, a building that has tenants, but if you're saying it's really not for the users, it's really to maintain the building.
Correct.
That's
I'm a little lost here. Where's the generator in terms of the cost on this schedule? Sorry.
It's
Is
included
it part
in,
of the 1.5?
yes.
Okay.
If it's for the health of the building, I don't understand. You're talking generator $250,000?
Less, because actually the generator, the only thing it would be powering, and that's what it's for, it says for systems, it'd be for the boilers and the pumps to keep that running, not for the lighting and, the use of the building while the power was
How
out.
about the septic?
The septic is separate, and because we don't maintain it, I'm not in it all the time, I think it has its own generator. I've only been in there once.
Okay.
But it's maintained by coastal engineering.
Yeah, I understand.
And if I can jump in on that one, that septic system may be coming under a line item that I'll be adding. I was gonna talk about this more at the end of the meeting. The town is now responsible for any and all capital costs at Harwich Elementary, based on the new regional agreement that we have. We're still gonna be given the overall bill from the school system in the assessment, but I think it's important for us to break that out in this plan. And so, two of the big issues we're talking about now is, given that essentially the town is 100% responsible for that BioClear system, did I get it right? Yay. I still don't know what that means, but that's the system we use. Whereas years past, we would say to Monomoy, here's your half of the bill, pay us, and then we add it and we pay coastal. It's 100% now on the town.
Okay.
So that issue has to come up, as well as infrastructure related to, we have a municipal building that is separate from an elementary school, and traffic configurations and things of that nature.
And that
So
generator,
there will be a line item added for Harwich Elementary School.
that generator is natural gas.
Yes.
How
So-
big is it?
How big is the one
How many
that's currently
kilowatt?
there?
How many kilowatts?
The one that's currently there, the one that's
The
not
one that you
working.
want to replace.
The one I want to replace is, I'm not gonna wire it up the same way it was, so the
Okay.
one I'll need is probably gonna be a 60 kW.
Okay. So it's not that big.
No.
It's keeping the heat.
How many generators does the town have? And
Not
I guess
enough.
they're all
Not
different
enough.
sized
Well,
kind of
yeah.
a thing?
Depends on the size.
Yes.
It kind of seems like, to me, like the vehicle thing, like it should be
Could be.
on a list that you replace, you replace, you replace,
Well,
instead of when it gets to the end of its life.
If I might, we could put boilers on that same list, and you can put air conditioners on that same list, and you can,
Right, right,
Windows.
right,
Yep.
yeah,
Slate
yeah.
How about an elevator in the police station?
that,
That works.
it works.
Ask the police
You
chief.
don't have any backup generators, like just sitting around not doing anything, do you? Just question, like, you don't have an emergency.
I wouldn't
one.
allow him to answer that question.
Yeah, okay. No, it
Joe,
might make
when
sense
you,
to do that.
we were talking about the septic, and it came up in the middle school context, but related to the elementary, is it something that you say we have to do for both of those buildings?
Split.
So there's a shared septic system, a BioClear system, that the actual unit is next to the former middle school, but it is for both parcels on the original property. From 2012 to present, it was split 50-50, where Monomoy would pay half the bill and the town of Harwich would pay the other
Okay,
half.
I didn't understand.
We're now responsible for the whole thing, and so that is a conversation that I'll be having with Dr. Carpenter later in October about how are we, the town, gonna handle the fact that we're responsible for capital items on that entire parcel.
So does it come out of the school's budget and go into the town's budget?
So what they've done is, there was a capital assessment that both towns paid into. When the coastal engineering bill comes in, it comes into town administration. And so before we pay it, we knock on the door of the school system saying, here's what you owe.
Yeah, I know that.
They send it, they transfer it over, then we pay it. That may still happen, but the thing I'm trying to emphasize is, when the director, the Secretary of Early and Secondary Education said, your regional agreement has now been updated. It says under Article 9, Section B, that each town shall be responsible for all capital costs related to their elementary schools.
Is there anything else like that hanging out there, Joe? Like how that's not on here currently, like?
Yes, so to that point, I advised Dr. Carpenter that perhaps his business manager, Michael McMillan, will be the one to fill out the forms. But I'd be looking for the forms for your benefit so that we can, as you folks have been trying to indicate, I'm with you on that, expand the scope of capital so we're trying to be as upfront and transparent at town meeting as possible. Again, we have a regular monthly meeting, and our next one's October 12th, so I'm hoping by I think your next meeting is the 21st?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping by that time, you'll have that in advance.
All right, awesome, thanks, Joe.
Sean, the fire alarm system, last year it wasn't on the priority list, now it is. What's going on there? Just,
During the last inspection last December, the technician noted that not only are all the heat and smoke detectors out of date, but the panel is so old, we couldn't get replacement parts if we wanted. I've had that verified by 2 other companies, and as we speak, I actually got somebody going through and doing a survey so I can get a more accurate and detailed cost assessment. This was just thrown out from one of the companies that came out, so I'm
Okay,
hoping to
but-
get something more detailed.
basically,
If it was to break, we couldn't get it back repaired, because there's no repair parts, it's so old.
do you have carbon monoxide detectors as well?
In that building, only in the boiler room,
Okay.
the 2 boiler rooms.
And that would go to the central panel?
Correct.
So in case there's a leak in the furnaces, someone would know about it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Joe, just administratively, like, there are some things that are not, don't have a sheet, will they be, like, I didn't see the fire alarm system, am I missing it? Was it,
It should be in there.
It's there.
Yeah, they don't have page numbers, unfortunately.
kind of, I feel like I'm losing.
Total estimated cost, $350,000. It's like the second or third one down.
No, you're looking on the summary, she's looking at the detailed
I'm looking at
sheets.
the details, like,
You're looking electronically, she's looking at hard copy.
yeah, doing it old school. Okay, I'll find it.
If you want for reference right there, you're more than welcome to use that.
Have we removed I thought we were
Got it,
planning
got
to
it.
remove the storage units and the temporary classrooms. Are we removing those, or did we remove those?
Thank you. I was waiting for Mr. Libby to look in my direction. The so-called modular classrooms, we don't use them as classrooms. We have no intention to use them as classrooms because it's a municipal building. Relying upon my own firsthand knowledge, having worked in education, the life cycle of a modular classroom was about a decade, and the concept was while you would consider expansion of your school system or redistricting, you use them. I believe when we got the building back, the modular classrooms were 20 years old. So we've used them to store some, what we thought might have been some great surplus property. It now becomes probably trash instead of surplus,
Yeah,
so we'll clear that out. There is 1 tenant in one of the 3 units, and I advised him directly back in July that, excuse me, the town has every intention of tearing down the modular classrooms, so I wanted to give him advance notice that if he finds another unit that's available in the proper building, we'd be more than happy to move him there. But if not, the town has an obligation to remove those modular classrooms sooner rather than later.
And what's, I mean, that's pretty big stuff back there. How do we do that? Do we have to contract somebody? Is that gonna cost us money?
Yes,
How much?
don't know.
That's
Really,
an
we can
expense,
do
though,
it.
right? Not a capital appropriation, isn't
It's
it?
not, yeah, that's a,
Depends on how much it is, right?
We will probably do the labor in-house and probably seek some funding to pay for the disposal cost only. So we have all the equipment to be able to remove them, but we do pay about $100 a ton for the stuff. So it shouldn't be a lot of money.
And I think to your colleagues' questions, that's more of an operational cost rather than a capital cost because it's a disposal fee, and that is something that was contemplated within the revolving fund.
And if, in FY '26, it was combined, a couple of my submittals, one of them is the storefront doors and that was when those buildings are gone. Right now, there's a hallway that connects, that hallway would go away,
Yeah,
and the storefront doors
that was gonna be
would
my
go
next
there.
question. How do we block that off?
So
now?
can we, I'm sorry, I'm just getting really confused. Can we go in order? Like, we just did the 1,510,000. Can we move to the 650 in the next year? Because we're jumping all over the place here, and I'm.
I thought we did that.
Yeah, we
The
did do that.
650 was the,
Slate roof and the gutters.
Yeah. It is confusing.
But I think Ms. Donovan's point is a fair one. We've talked about fiscal year 2024. If there weren't any more questions, we could progress to
Okay.
other years. and in year 2025 is new to the plan, and it is the slate roof repairs. Sean has addressed it, but we can certainly entertain more
Can I
questions.
just ask one question about the roof? Because I think I was trying to pay attention to something else, I'm sorry. Can we wait till 2026 if there's water intrusion? To fix those,
For the roof?
yeah.
Okay, so I have 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
in
sorry, it's
25.
20,
By
okay.
25, yeah.
And I believe so, but more and more slate is dropping. There is no water intrusion currently.
Okay, all right. It does say potential water damage, that's why I asked that
Potential,
question.
yes. It
Okay,
is,
okay.
right now, we've got probably, I would say, an eighth of the slate has fallen, but in all different areas. I had a roofing contractor up there this summer to give me an estimate, and that was his estimate. But there's no water intrusion yet.
Okay, all right, all
Okay,
right.
let's
good.
go to 265.
Yes.
So
In
fiscal year
26.
2026, new to the plan, as Sean was just referencing, is first 85, excuse me, I had that wrong in my notes, I have to correct that, 80,000 for the repairs to the rear of the building that Sean mentioned, and 185,000 for general repairs to the building. Again, these two items are new to the plan. Total cost is 265,000. And Sean, if you want to speak to the general repairs form, as well as the rear restoration if necessary.
Okay, are there any questions on the rear entry?
I think you were starting to answer it. You were saying that this one that's for 80,000, where it says replace storefront doors and exterior repairs, when you take those classrooms off, I envision you're looking outside from inside the building, like no wall, nothing. This is what's gonna fix that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I know you put desirable on there, but isn't it kind of like a safety issue that you want to have the building locked up, so?
We could board it up and wall it up, or we could put doors there, so it leads to the back. 7 years ago, we had it boarded up because we were going to take away those portable classrooms. And then the decision was made to rent them out, so we took the board down.
But there's a little bit of a structural issue back there, isn't there?
Correct, yeah, and that's,
And this will all fix that?
that will fix that.
Okay, okay.
And that concludes 204 Sisson Road. He said
Well-
hopefully.
I have a couple- Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes.
That concludes what's on there, so I had a question about, so I got the portable. So were there anything, there's nothing coming in from the fields or anything, there's nothing outside that has to get done over the next 5 years, like to use those fields in a different way, or?
So with regard to use of the fields, again, sort of tying back to the regional agreement and the school district,
Yeah,
I would contemplate that under a different category,
okay,
because it's, the town has a mutual use agreement on the fields and the back property, if you will, that, again, I think we need to revisit. When I say we, I mean the town of Harwich, Chatham, and Monomoy School District, to see what that is generally. Thrilled to report to CPC next month that the community playground was complete. And I emphasize community playground because although it is adjacent to the elementary school, it is town of Harwich property on town of Harwich property. That was originally part of, I believe, a 5-year plan that my predecessor and Dr. Carpenter were talking about. So we've had preliminary discussions where what 204 Sisson Road's gonna change in the back sooner rather than later, regardless of what may happen to the building in the future. So what do we think we're gonna do with the fields? And that's a further discussion.
thank you, that's helpful.
The bigger question on that really then becomes, okay, who's asking? Because if it's the school district, I would love to say, okay, well, that's on you folks, rather than on the town.
Okay, the elevator in there, I heard that was shaky. I've never been in it, but I heard the elevator's a little bit
The elevator where?
in
In the
Sisson
middle.
Road. 204.
It has an elevator? I didn't know that.
Yes, it's operable. you know, it's maintained monthly. It's on our elevated contract. And, it's weight tested just last year.
Okay.
Sean, how does it compare, say, to the elevator at Town Hall?
It's equivalent.
That's what I would have thought. But not necessarily as good as Public Safety Complex?
Absolutely, they're brand new.
Yeah.
All right, that's helpful.
Quick question, if that building becomes more occupied, whether municipal use or the business plan may put tenants in there, what do you do for air conditioning? And is- Nothing,
Currently.
currently. But
If it was
looking
going to
forward-
be, moving forward, if it was going to be, that would have to be engineered out. There is no ductwork for,
you'd have to put ductwork in.
for that sort of thing going into the old classrooms. The only thing that's ducted is the common spaces, which is the library, the cafeteria, the hallways.
Yeah,
So all that would have to be reconfigured. And going into what you said earlier, talking about an EMS, energy management system,
Right.
we would go there with DDC controls at that point, and everything would change.
right. So just to make a note, Mr. Powers, if in the future that building becomes more occupied, we have a large capital project there. And I'll just give this, guys, to you, excuse me, just for a second, please. Let me just finish. I noticed in Wareham, and you're probably aware of this, Sean, Train Services is a company that does the whole energy thing. Just if you're aware of it, that's fine. Just, they seem to be doing all the roofing and AC and energy efficiency and,
Yeah, there's actually numerous companies that are out there
Doing
doing it.
that.
Rise Engineering is Cape Light
right.
Compact's, representative here, and we use them all the time.
Right.
And we've actually upgraded 204 Cistern Road with brand-new motors and brand-new variable speed controls and all new LED lighting. And that was all done at almost zero cost. And it has decreased our energy use by about 2/3.
wow.
No, I'm sorry, 1/3. We have 2/3, but we pay.
Yeah, good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going back to your original thing. You were talking about the AC versus the boilers for the heat. Is that what you were talking about? That
Correct.
might be
Two
a
different,
consideration
If you get
later?
more occupancy there, you'll have some costs for the AC, ductwork, and maybe a condenser or an AC,
But it would be the
Not,
whole,
not versus the boilers. It would be in conjunction with the boilers, air conditioning, cooling, is what I believe he was talking.
but it's not currently accounted for. Are we,
There is no air conditioning.
no, that's what I mean. We're not,
We're not even considering it at this point.
AC is not anywhere on the plan at this point.
May I ask a question? Sitting back and listening that we're gonna put $2.5 million into this building. Is there anybody with greater minds than the people in this room that might say, we don't need 204 Sisson Road? And that was addressed 8 years ago. And we have many people who felt, we don't need it. Is that still up in the air or a discussion item? Mr. Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am still operating under the directive of the board that that building will be in use through April of 2024, is the point I will emphasize. To Ms. Donovan's question earlier about physical plant, which is something I do want to wrap up the overall discussion on facilities maintenance by talking about that. I can give far greater information on the concept of that building or any other. So what I'd like to ask is, after you get through the facilities maintenance, I'd love to talk to that specific question.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would like to respond to the questions about air conditioning and the tenants and all that. So you heard Mr. Libby say, we, and he's absolutely right, we are not even contemplating at this point air conditioning in a building that used to be a school. My understanding is school buildings in Massachusetts, public school buildings at least, generally were not or are not air conditioned. So we don't enjoy a legacy system there. Were we to make that commitment, whether it's for the employees, that's an obligation of the town. But if we were to make that commitment to future tenants, that would absolutely factor into my decision-making on the rent. If we make that far more appealing, it's going to be far more appealing. And for the record, I'm rubbing my thumb and index finger together to indicate more money. So we are not contemplating it yet, but as we progress, that is absolutely gonna be tied back to a revenue statement.
But it won't generate enough revenue to cover the cost of putting
Yeah.
in an air conditioning system.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, let's continue to the next.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, the next item, I was glad that the DPW director who had to step out for a moment came back. I'm gonna put this one squarely on his lap, but to give him a quick setup. So in fiscal year 2027, you can see that there was in the plan a request valued at $3.2 million for a new Department of Public Works maintenance building. Again, with the impacts of supply chain and inflation, we now estimate that cost to be $3.68 million. And the reason why I put it on the director's lap is because, as we talked about last year, he coded that as desirable. So I would love for him to explain. Having said that, I want to emphasize, I don't want anyone to take that I just said, Link, this is yours to explain. For the times that I've gone over to the DPW building, it is an amazing complex, but it's an evolving complex. And so, rather than talk about the cost, I would rather reimagine whether it's desirable or necessary. But with that, I would like to turn it over to the director, because he can speak far better to the request than I.
That's a major assumption on your part. Believe, Mr. Chair, that you were around when Pete Watts and I finally convinced him of the merits that we needed a smaller building that was carried on the plan for a number of years, like a 4-bay building. I think Joe's alluded that talk programs here, and that'll evolve into the needs. So my original thought was this building was built in 1987, if memory serves me correctly. It was fairly new when I was hired by the town, 91. We have had a number of programs added to our plate, meaning that we used to just do DPW vehicles. Sometime in the late 2000s, somewhere around there, the Board of Selectmen, along with some other committees, centralized vehicle maintenance. Well, that took more people. We hired 2 additional mechanics to help us with that function. We never got more space. And yet now we're tasked with taking care of everybody's vehicles in town, which numbers 160, 170 last time I looked at the total. We also had, actually the library director was instrumental in getting Mr. Libby's position funded. She went to town meeting number of year after year, spoke articulately on the need. We used to have a facility maintenance department of 2 people, which really was not facilities. It was building maintenance, and we were going and putting Band-Aids on things, where most things were hired out. We were able to bring Sean in. We were able to hire a plumber, was his need. So now we have a department of 4 people that were never contemplated. We have had other functions that those are the 2 major ones I'm talking about, but other functions added to our plate and consolidated. Custodial services is one, and I'm sure I'm missing some. And yet, we're still in the same building that was designed by 1987 standards. How do we make do? You make do by figuring out how to conduct business. Our vehicle maintenance manager, Kyle Edson, to address this kind of problem with not having enough lifts or enough bay space, we started parking what vehicles could be parked outside, and we got a mobile lift system. So he is now able to lift up the big fire trucks and so forth, right in the middle of the department, right in the middle of the bay. And this facility, for most of you that have not been there, is essentially a giant space building with some office space in there. We've outgrown the office space long ago, and we certainly don't have anywhere near the square footage necessary to house all of our equipment. And I'd welcome anybody to come out and take a walk around, and I'd be happy to show you around. These guys work miracles, they really do. I'm very proud of that fact, and we've continued to serve the public, but we're out of space.
Would the new building be in, will you keep the old building, or that, would you demolish, you'd keep that and add
Yes.
to it, the one with the bays and all
The
that?
town's very fortunate. In fact, the disposal area, as well as that, I think there's 165 acres in total that the town owns out there. In fact, trying to avoid constructing a waste treatment plant, but if Dennis doesn't, you may be constructing one on this site. Not necessarily adjacent to the current DPW, but there's a lot of land the town owns out there.
What revenue do you bring in every year?
The only revenue is from the disposal area, which is around $4 million a year. All the other functions we do, what Sean does, there's no revenue. We
I understand.
basically serving the town's needs. You know, what Kyle, fixing vehicles, that doesn't generate revenue. Sweeping streets and repairing potholes, that doesn't generate revenue. The only revenue generating essentially is disposal.
Yeah, but we thank God during the winter when Harwich is the only town around that has clean streets and clean sidewalks.
That's becoming more challenging, Mr. Chair, because recruiting plow drivers these days is difficult at best.
Well, this week it's cutting down the bushes along the streets and stuff. No, I think, you know, we, historically, because I can speak historically here, that department has never requested anything, has always come in under budget when they do their budget. And it's probably the one department that literally every citizen bumps into once a week, unless they're running for office and they want to go there and get signatures, or if they actually have a disposal task to do. So, I'm with you on
Just
your.
one
Yeah.
question, you build the new building and then you have the 1987 building, what do you use that for?
Storage.
Okay, does there,
Uh,
so just in the terms of, now the town has another building, right, to maintain, it's pretty, you know, sort of rudimentary in terms of the maintenance of that existing building. Is there capital that needs to be spent on to get that building to where you need,
We put
like
new.
new roof or whatever it is?
Oh,
We're
aluminum.
finishing that.
We're
Oh,
finished,
okay.
that's underway right as we speak. A
Oh,
new
okay.
roof is being installed. We put new siding on it 3 years ago, something
Yep.
like that. So we've maintained what we've had.
Right, right.
You know, another issue too is I've had air quality. You know, I'm 30-hour OSHA as he. I've had quality, air quality testing done. We have made incremental improvements by parking like vehicles that lose their air overnight outside or hooking it, stuff to them, but it still is nowhere near current standards. And to retrofit an old building is
No, I'm not-
almost,
I'm just thinking, it's another building on this list.
Right,
and-
it is.
And there's things that you still have to do, so, but it just sounds like if it's used
Well,
for
it's a good,
storage.
it's a good question. Should we keep that at, get rid of 204 Sisson Road?
it's-
Pretty obvious to me.
Or how many buildings do we want to
Or
maintain?
732 Main Street.
Whatever makes it happen, but we've got a department here that functions
It's just that
well.
we're adding buildings, we're adding buildings.
And we need, historically, we don't get rid of buildings.
Right.
I congratulate the gentleman that bought West Harwich Elementary School and turning it into 7 apartments. And that building has been sitting there.
20-something years.
First discussion, got new windows? Didn't they put new windows in?
No,
But they didn't, they put plywood on top.
no.
Oh,
That
okay.
makes you feel better.
Yes, sir.
First, to the immediate comment, I would also like to congratulate the Board of Selectmen who directed me to make those those sales happen. And you're absolutely right, 5 Bell's Neck is no longer on the town's roll, and we expect in October of this year, 203 Bank Street will no longer be on the town's rolls. So where the town did not do this in years past, this Board of Selectmen has absolutely made it a policy directive for me, and we're doing it, but the questions are all fair.
Yep.
I think what I want to have out there at this point is, what I would correct the director on is, and I think I understand the mindset. This request is not desirable. This request is a necessity. You've heard a very articulate statement of all of the work that the Public Works Division does. Mr. Libby is one of 5 department heads that Link has, and they all have equipment and they all need it stored. So if I could only correct one thing, it would be the priority designation of desirable. So perhaps you'll contemplate perhaps an enhancement or something else.
Quick question, who takes care of the public schools, and will you have to pick up Harwich Elementary because of the new split in cost?
No, we will not. On the cost, we will just have to pay for it, and the schools are maintained by the school district.
A question from the newbie here. If you do need this, and I would expect you would, why do you need it 5 years from now?
That's where it was on the plan.
Yeah, because, that's where we had originally kicked it. I always just request a new request. I had this down to, I don't know, $500,000. My original thought, and I'm going back, oh my God, probably at least 15 or 20 years.
But my
was-
question is, move it forward if you need it. And I,
I agree with Mr. Powers. I should be more strenuous in the request. I haven't been. I've tried to-
this is being supportive.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so that if you need it, you need it. Since the narrative I'm hearing from everything is everything's been put off too long, gets too old, and then becomes an emergency.
And if I could add to that, the purpose of my comments were that Mr. Hooper and his team
Yeah.
take care of the town. As is often the case with people of that nature, they're not looking to take care of themselves. And we appreciate that, but I think what we're all saying is, there's a very cogent argument for that building, and this is exactly the process that you all go through.
Well, we just,
We may all agree that not only is it needed, it needs to be bumped up.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of the plan discussion.
just jumping in, again, shoot me down as the new person here, but if we're saying for 5 years, it would cost $2.5 million to keep 204 Sisson Row open and viable, but we're not quite sure how much revenue or what's gonna happen to it. And DPW is, the heartbeat of the town. Move that up.
That's exactly the kind of discussions I would imagine through you, Mr. Chairman, that you folks will have prior to our presentation. When I say our, this committee and I meet jointly with FinCom and Board of Selectmen on
Well,
December 5th.
I
don't
think
think
this
you're
is,
gonna
this
put
is
a-
the venue today. When, can we move it?
Yeah.
And what year can we move it to?
So what I would ask again at the conclusion of this meeting is I would like to do a summation, not only of this, but also for your future discussions. When I see a plan, for me, the question simply is, if we're doing it, how are we paying for it? And so I wanted to begin the discussion of various funding sources. Because for any one of these, if the priority is there, the money will follow,
Okay,
because it has to.
so
Well,
let's,
I would hate to see it get lost in the fact that we've got all this wastewater, that is a huge number, right? And so it keeps getting put off, and then if we have to build a facility, because we can't connect with Dennis, and there's this time where the sewer is not gonna be developed because we don't have a place to put it, right?
So,
I
yeah.
just think that, the priorities, stepping on top of things that are also a priority. So,
okay. I think from a priority standpoint, it has to be moved up, and we'll discuss that. And there's only one person that knows the funding issue, or a couple. That would be Joe and the finance director.
I think if you're looking to, and thank you very much for all your support.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking to move it up, we could probably start by getting some design money
Exactly.
sooner than later to get the ball rolling.
So we can change, that's the opportunity that we have when we start in September or October. And we're starting so early that when this request form is ready for submittal, perhaps we move that 1 year over and get the design money either next year or the year after.
yeah,
So,
because if you look at the total number, net of wastewater and
2 million.
water, it's very low.
Yeah.
Normally, that number is closer to 4 million, right?
Correct, it's
So,
far below average.
I think, and that design would be part of the capital number, right?
Correct,
Yes.
Meaning, Link, we're talking design and engineering
Correct.
costs.
Right.
Yep.
Ahead of
Yep.
construction. The
Do it next year.
3.68 is intended to be the construction cost.
And honestly, that number is we have no idea what that number
Exactly,
really
it's
is.
gonna be a bigger number, and
Placeholder.
that's why I keep saying, the further you push it out, the more expensive it gets, and the harder it is to finance it, you know what I mean, like, because other things are coming up and.
So if I could, to that item, what I'd like to do is Link and I will debrief after this meeting, and I will contemplate adding design and engineering costs for fiscal year '24.
Right.
Now, typically, when we do that, we try to do that 2 years ahead of construction. So that would mean I would contemplate moving the construction from '27 to '26. So if that's, committee's okay with that, I'll add those changes for your next revision.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to, there's something, the transfer station.
So if I may set it up very quickly, Mr. Chairman, you have two items for that. First is the figure of $157,300. That is in the plan. What's changed, surprise, is the cost. We originally contemplated a cost of $140,000. We now contemplate a cost of $157,300. And then if you progress to the end of the plan, so this was not in the plan because it's the new 5th year. So for the 5th year of the plan, we are adding recycle center upgrade, and the cost that's contemplated presently is $545,000. And again, I defer to Link or Sean to give more background on those requests.
What's the 157.3?
Generator replacement.
That generator was installed immediately following Hurricane
just
Bob
buy-
in
Bring
1992.
a truckload in and get a discount?
1992.
Call Lowe's.
That's what I mean,
Don't-
you need to have a spare one in the.
Well, after Hurricane Bob, there was no power for the better part of a week, and
I had it.
Well, after Hurricane Ian, there may not be any generators either.
Well, actually, right now, there's over a year
Year
out
wait.
waiting for
Yeah.
generators.
Yeah.
I got mine.
Very-
Um,
yeah.
Okay, so,
But to answer the question that keeps coming up, why don't we have portable generators? They're all different amperage requirements and voltage. This is a 480 volt, so that's what our.
to run the,
compactor
to
is.
run the 30-horse motors that run the compactor to get rid of our trash.
okay, I thought in the past, there's gonna be, or there's been limited uses, what are the newspapers or recyclables? What's going downhill that doesn't generate anything for us?
Right now, none of the recycling's generating
We're
much.
good.
It's always, in my budget submittals, I never really rely on what the revenue may be from recycling. I
Okay.
say what it is for the year, but I, don't.
What do we make the most money on?
Usually light iron, metal.
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 Got it.
And we haul all of our own recyclables and trash. Most of the recyclables goes to New Bedford.
But it's,
Right now, it went from a year ago, record highs that we'd never seen, $300 a ton for light
Right.
iron. Right now, it's about 110. News is nothing, OCC is nothing. But we can't stop recycling them because we're mandated, being a small quantity generator by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to offer these services.
Where does the generator go?
Right in back of the transfer station. There's a generator there now that was installed in 1992, following Bob. After Bob, when we had no power to run the facilities, and no portable generators were capable of running it because of the power draw there, we got an emergency declaration from DEP to actually bury our trash. Yeah, we had an active landfill at the time, but it was a C&D landfill. We have relief from that to bury the trash until power came back.
but just to reiterate a point, the transfer station makes $4 million a year, correct?
That's the revenue generator.
That's the
yes.
revenue generator, and you're asking over 5 years for 700,000? That's nothing.
Well, you don't get to
Well,
use that.
all the expenses,
But
we
it's
pay a great deal in.
It's a revenue generating business.
Yeah, that said, ma'am,
It's
we
not
have,
allocated that way.
yeah, it really, it's
Goes in the
more
general
in and
fund.
out.
In and
What I'm
out,
saying is,
okay.
we probably have $2.5 million worth of just disposal cost, tipping fees that the town pays. Plus, we have to transport it, plus we have staff, plus we have utilities.
So it may be break even.
It is, that's what, when I recommend my pricing to the board, it
So it's
really is, I do a
break
break-even analysis for them, for their consideration.
Got it.
Have you had trouble with the current, very ancient generator?
With the current, pardon me?
The current generator, does it have
Yes.
problems now?
Yes.
So you need a generator.
We've been putting Band-Aids on it, quite frankly.
It's no
Does the same company repair all of them?
Yes.
I mean, 1992, that's insane.
It was 1992, and we've had to rely on that a few times, where we've lost power out there, and yet our transfer station is up and running. That generator powers the transfer station and the scale house. So when we moved the scale house over to its new location, we put underground utilities, so the scale is operable as well.
Are you guys responsible for those panels that are out there at all? Like, does that come into?
No. The town receives, I don't know, roughly 350,000, 400,000 from those.
But that has nothing to do with you guys keep
No.
doing it, okay?
There's a giant power agreement the book's about that thick.
Be fun to read.
And the amendments are even worse.
Okay, so we're getting down, let's talk about town hall.
Oh, we haven't finished here. We didn't talk about the building improvements. There's 545,000?
That's for a new recycle center.
Yes.
We talked about that,
We did?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed it. I don't recall talking about that.
Okay, so we're on town hall, and
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mr. Libby, I don't think is aware of the setup that I'm about to hit him with. So, as the senior most responsible person in town hall for the building, me, I have urged Mr. Libby to look at any and all opportunities to describe project needs for the building. Meaning, as you talk about physical plant, as I talk about it, part of the message I've been saying is, I have more buildings than I have money, and I have no affinity for any other building, with the exception of the ones that are iconic to the town, such as Brooks Academy. Everything else is replaceable and switchable. So, there's been brickwork discussion, and I know the stairs and things like that. Is there any contemplation for the brickwork, for a similar thing to be done in the town hall like there is for the public safety building?
No, not capital,
Say again?
not capital.
Not through capital, thank you.
Prepare.
That was my only question. Thanks for letting me use that, otherwise I couldn't have a show.
I have a question for you, Joe. You have mentioned, or maybe joked a few times about getting rid of town hall, or maybe moving it over to Sisson Road, or
Yep.
all that stuff. Is that anywhere in the cards? Like,
So,
could that be serious? Because,
First, if I may, thank you.
yeah,
I may try to be humorous, but when I say these at public meetings, I don't joke. And that is to say, I want to emphasize, and I try to perhaps take the edge off, every building for me is up for consideration. One of the struggles that I have, as we'll talk about in physical plant, is we have more monies than more physical plant, we have more physical plant than we have money. And so it's an ongoing struggle for me, while Sean and Link make sure that the buildings that are operable. It's a bigger question for me through the board of selectmen to say, what are we gonna do with Albro House? What are we gonna do with 732 Main Street? Those two buildings could be contemplated for sale. If we did that, where would we move folks? Well, we might move them to 204 Sisson because it's big enough. So there's a lot of those discussions where I've made it clear to the board and anyone else that I will contemplate any such action if necessary. Because I firmly believe that while the town of Harwich is very well run, and that's not just a reference to me, that's indicative of our AAA bond rating and everything else, we have major infrastructure needs.
right.
So thank you for the chance to say, while I may be humorous, I'm not kidding, if I could say it that way.
No, that's
Everything is
helpful.
up for consideration.
And the reason I ask, I mean, although we don't have an issue here in terms of the projected capital spend anyway is 5 years out, so that doesn't make me nervous, but again, we keep talking about 204 Sisson Road, if we had that if that was the vision in however many years to move everybody from here over there, or whatever.
Right.
If we somehow knew that, if we had a crystal ball, I guess if somebody made a decision that that would be the target, then it would be easier to make decisions about 204 Sisson Road, but nothing's that easy, I suppose.
Correct. You're right on all points. This big book is dedicated to 204 Sisson, but to your point, I've read the studies, I've seen the floor plans, where first floor of town hall could go somewhere over there, second floor of town hall could go somewhere over there. So That's why I keep saying I'm less concerned about studies, because we have the material. I'm more concerned about policy and directives. Now, having said that, that's on me to get that in front of the board for that kind of discussion.
Yeah, directives, decisions, that's my point about what's
Yep.
the vision, because it would be much easier to contemplate what to do over there, or how
Correct.
fast to do it.
And again, if I could, because I know we want to have a desire to be done before noon time, that's also that physical plant discussion that I want to bring up briefly in a moment.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
So for town hall, you're only asking for $275,000 for the roof in 5 years.
Correct.
I know you've talked about windows and some windows that are, people are freezing in front of.
Put a sweater on.
Thank you.
You sound like
You
my
guys, they must
father.
have talked first.
So there's no.
I was going to make a reference that, and I've always tried to do this with admiration for both gentlemen in front of you. I've referred to Sean as MacGyver, and I think this audience may get the reference. I also like to think of him as the
What are you
original
saying, Joe?
Scotty from Star Trek, where he may say, "Damn it, Joe, I'm just a facilities maintenance manager." That's a policy decision. To that point, we're sitting in this room and we have a digital clock that tells us it's 70 degrees in here.
It's freezing.
It feels colder than that, but I can tell you that, again, as the senior most manager in this building, I know that Dr. O'Neill, our health director, and Sean Libby worked on an air quality study, and the results came back very encouraging. So it feels like the building is sick. It doesn't correspond to the data that we have. Doesn't mean that people don't get chilly. It doesn't mean that there aren't needs in the building. I'd refer anyone to the lobby or to that opening on the side of the building where we have some sort of wrap that's on there and discoloration. But by and large, this municipal building's operable.
Okay.
You
Okay.
have an opportunity to rebut.
I can tell you, when it comes to HVAC, any technician laughs, because you can have you being cold with a sweater on,
Yeah.
and right next to you, I got to roll up my sleeves, I'm getting a little
Right,
warm.
right.
It's like at home with your wife. It's
Exactly.
exactly the same. You're watching TV, one is hot, one is cold. Okay, can we,
Library.
Brooks Free Library. Now Brooks Academy was missing on the sheets before,
Correct.
okay? So let's go to Brooks Free Library, and what are we talking about?
And Sean, I think I'm missing one form, because what we have is $40,000. Oh, sorry, the $40,000, I think I have to find that. That was originally filed by the library director for fiscal year '25. And the reason why I moved it is because, again, department heads shouldn't have to concern themselves with structural issues. That would be facilities maintenance. And then in line with that, fiscal year '26 relates to interior modifications, and then the new request. So I believe, I'm sort of talking out loud here, but the requests for '25 and '26, I may have to update those to reflect facilities maintenance, as we've done for Brooks Academy, take them from the library director, add them to Sean's list. But the big item is the new item, because it's the new year, and that are the air handling units at the library. I believe I'm not betraying any tales out of school when I tell you that our library director may be keenly interested in the air handling project being sooner rather than later. And I'm not in a position to dispute that. Rather, my point is that falls under the bailiwick of Mr. Libby to talk about.
But what were the 40 and the 154?
So the original notes that I have were, I'll have to look up library, the 40 in a moment. The 150,000 was interior modifications that are being contemplated. Can you speak to that part while I look
I
up the 40?
cannot. The only thing I can say is I know that the trustees and the director had been looking at modifications to the building. They haven't put it to design yet. They haven't even solidified their thought process, so that's why it's been
This was
slid.
something that was in the plan before, and it had to do with like how the library got used in the pandemic versus how they had contemplated before, and maybe they needed different spaces, right?
Correct, they were looking at the layout of the building itself and for the use of it. And that's about all I'm familiar with.
Are we having the librarian come in, the library committee? Are they coming in?
They can, again, I'm
They
trying to
normally
say though
do.
that,
They normally do.
right, building issues are facilities maintenance versus program issues, but we can absolutely do that. I will tell you that my notes are, so the original request that came in from the library director, from the library board of trustees, was for the air handling unit. They want that in fiscal year '24. Sean and I have talked about it. We believe it can be handled later. To your point, that's a solely elected board, so you can absolutely have a joint meeting with them if you desire.
When they were here the last time, they did say that they were reevaluating some things based on the pandemic and how the library got used, and that she wasn't ready to commit to anything. But she knew she needed to do something in the out years, so.
I'm not downgrading Sean in this
No,
opportunity.
I agree.
But when you have Ginny, and she goes through this stuff, it's like speaking to an engineer who happens to have a librarian job on the side. I mean, she understands this stuff inside and out, and when the request, how much the request. She's probably the most analytic librarian I have ever met. So I'd like to have the librarian to discuss what they think they need in conjunction with Sean's efforts. Okay?
And then generally speaking, Mr. Chairman, you would have the same for the water.
Yeah, water's
Excuse
coming.
me, water wastewater commissioners where they're duly elected, and should be given that due. I just want to emphasize that I have a responsibility to the entire plan, just like I have a responsibility to the entire budget.
Yeah, and I'm saying I'd like to see more of the departmental requests on here. Not on here, but to discuss.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll go now, and something that was missing, that was being worked on by somebody who is no longer here, Brooks Academy. You wrote me a note that that was being worked on by somebody else.
So, yes or sorry? Meaning, Brooks Academy had been its own line
Right,
related to administration.
right,
David Spitz, chair of the Brooks Academy Museum Commission, is still very much with us.
right.
However, David knows that building now comes under facilities maintenance. So what you have handed out this morning
It's brand new.
would be the updated form, and the updated form covers all the years in the plan. Sean's just been given this information. David is in a similar category as Ms. Hewitt, and by the way, I just gotta put it out there, I couldn't agree more. We have the best library director, who is one of the best engineers.
You betcha.
And we have one of the best committee chairs, who was a planner, in David
Yes.
Spitz. But again, my purpose on this entry of facilities maintenance, to have it all under that category.
Do we know what the numbers mean? Or
We
is it-
do, and I can certainly go through those.
Okay, why don't we do that?
So, first of all, with the request for 2024, what this is contemplating is mitigating repairs to the interior walls of the Brooks Academy building following the lifting of the building. Let me tell you very quickly, Monday night, October 3rd, the Board of Selectmen is expected to sign a contract for $1,189,000 to Campbell Contractors, who were the low bid, and we have the funding to do the lift of the building. A remarkable thing, because we thought we were gonna be priced out. So we expect that work to begin in fiscal year '23. Additionally, at the special town meeting in October, we're looking for funds to hire the owner's project manager, because in this instance, as talented and authorized as Mr. Libby may be, he is not authorized to be the town's owner's project manager when you lift a building. So we may be able to rely upon Sean in other instances to be our owner's project manager, but we cannot in the instance of Brooks Academy. So the $600,000 contemplates what we believe may need to be repairs to the walls. That may be a higher number, but we would rather go higher, accounting for contingencies, supply chain issues, and inflation. I can move on unless you had questions to that item.
So the 1.189 that's gonna get approved that was sort of the 1.2 from last year's?
Correct, exactly. Yep,
Okay. So we're on track with that, yay, okay,
we're back on track, right?
right.
Yeah. Fiscal year 2025, the 175,000, that was in the plan, again, under Brooks Academy, as was the 600,000. The main items here is that they've been moved under facilities maintenance. The number in fiscal year 2025, we were originally contemplating $560,000. We are now contemplating the cost of $175,000, and the purpose of that would be for replacement of existing gutters and downspouts and things of that nature. Again, we're contemplating that the building will have been lifted, the majority of the work done, and now we're doing the related projects to it. Fiscal year I'll yield, Mr. Chairman, you have a.
I just have a question, if I can ask. I'm just trying to understand the different documents I'm looking at. So if I look at the actual plan, the numbers there are they the 600, 560, and 75 don't necessarily jive with either the breakdown?
So are you looking at the September 9th version?
Yep.
This
So
September
in front
30th.
of you now,
September 30th.
on the 11 by 17 is the updated version.
So,
What's not in here, Karen, are things that CPC is gonna potentially pay
Correct.
for.
So,
That's maybe why your numbers aren't jiving.
well, I think actually it might be a version so Karen, if you're looking at 80
yeah,
Parallel
I
Street,
think Joe's right, yeah. I think it's.
that version, today's version
Does map to
matches
this one.
with the request form.
And this breakdown adds up to those numbers.
Correct, yep.
And just, actually, that's very helpful, but to the point of the CPC, so regardless of funding source, they all should be in here, shouldn't they?
So that was an issue that I was confronted with 2 years ago, where people were questioning if we're putting CPC items in the capital plan, and the purpose of the capital plan articles is to do funding. This committee has no authority whatsoever, nor do the board, nor do I, over community preservation. And so this capital plan is meant to contemplate, as you build it, all of the capital items funded separate from community preservation. As they go through their process, we will have a merging of documents, if you will. Meaning the final documents that go back to capital will show the capital separate from CPC, will show CPC, will also show schedule of locations and everything else. So we don't add it now because we're not the decision makers on it. But as we get that information from CPC, it is reflected.
Yeah, because that goes back to the bigger context on some of these.
Exactly, it ties everything
Some of
together.
these buildings or departments or whatever, it sort of gives you the full picture of what they're asking
Exactly.
for
Yep.
and how it all fits in, right?
Exactly.
How does, I don't understand all of CPC, how do they decide what they will fund for Brooks
So
Academy?
they are a statutorily regulated body, meaning no matter what we, the town, tell them to do, state law dictates. And so they have different buckets, as they call it, of funds,
Right,
open space, recreation, all that. So they rely upon their knowledge of the act to decide what priorities they're gonna fund. And their acts are sacrosanct.
And
The only ones that can reject their acts are town meeting.
And in the past, like the library, where they needed CPC funding to do something, they have asked this committee and the finance committee to sit at the CPC and present what we think of the project.
so you do have a little bit of input.
Well, we have input should they want to hear it in the
Correct.
presentation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it sort of add credence to what the town manager wants or the town administrator wants. Should the committee, like I have presented to the CPC, because the library needed support on something, and we said, if you have the funding, we think you should fund it, and it happens. So they've been open.
I have one more question. Does this this breakdown, is that the end of this project for Brooks Academy?
So the way I'll answer it is, I said to David, so you have nothing in fiscal year 2028, which is the new 5th year. Is that the end of the project? And the answer was, we'll see. I think, Karen, what I would say, sorry, Ms. Doucette, what I would say is that David and I are trying to contemplate all of the project, and in doing so, that's what led me to go down the route of the owner's project manager.
Yeah.
Because although the lift of the building is only, is under 1.2, the total project far exceeds the 1.5 million that requires an OPM. So this is David's best understanding, barring anything that changes during any of the projects. So we do not contemplate anything beyond fiscal year 2027. But the biggest project, part of the project is yet to be done, and that's the lifting the building.
Is that OPM price for the 1 year? Meaning,
No, we contemplate a multi-year OPM for that at the October 18th special town meeting.
What's
It
an
may not
OPM?
need to be multi-year.
What's an OPM?
Sorry, owner's project manager.
so,
Under mass procurement laws, when you have a project of a significant value, you must hire one.
but it won't cover them all the way through this 27?
No, we may be able to rely upon the present architect for some of those. We are contemplating an OPM first and foremost for the lift project. The
Yeah, you know where I'm
lifting of
going
the
with that. Are we gonna see another request for 150 next year and the year after and the year
building.
after?
No, I wouldn't contemplate it at all.
Awesome.
So just stepping back a minute, because I'm kind of new to this, the original Brooks Academy project started when?
I don't know that because it was before me.
And there was a number that the town sort of thought would take to bring the building sort of up to a standard, was it like 5
I think one of the things that happened, there was a project that was through CPC, but then as we, the town, before me, got into it, we discovered that we've got a bigger problem. Is that,
Well, they had some requests, and we used CPC money to have it assessed, to have the building assessed. And out of that assessment, they came up with a number. And they went and looked at it. They wanted to get things like the facade done, or the basement done, or they wanted different things done. CPC had came to me and said, what do you think? And my personal opinion is what we're doing now.
Right, it's
I said,
structural.
"Well, we've gotta get the basement. If you don't have the footing for it to sit on, it doesn't matter."
Okay. And so once we do the lift, would you say 50% of the project is done, or you don't want to say?
cameras are on.
I know, I'm just trying
So-
to get a sense of where we are, and I know in the finance
I'm
committee
with
meeting,
you.
they had asked for something.
the
Was
best
this
way-
what you're gonna give them?
Yes, the
Okay.
best way I think I can answer that is, and again, I want to cross my fingers, I don't want to paint the devil on the wall, as folks have taught me. We anticipate projects as are outlined here to happen after the lift.
Right. They could-
Until the lift occurs at that ancient building, that's
And
all
the
I want to
assump-
say about
The
that.
assumption is a successful lift.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Correct.
All this could be,
The good Lord willing.
Yeah, so like painting that building, which is,
So repairing the walls, painting the building, updating the downspouts and all that, that would be additional work to support the building going forward.
and you got 2 350s after that.
and
Yep. You got 700, you got 850.
Yep, so the second 350 is, it was a zero amount, so that is a new item. And for 2027, that is the relocation of exhibit spaces, offices, research areas. The way I would describe that is, that would be the town reconfiguring the tenant setup. Because again, it's a town building. The sole tenant is the Harwich Historical Society, but the town has an obligation to the tenants in that building if we continue to use it for that purpose, and I haven't heard anyone suggest that we don't.
Okay.
So they're anticipating they'll be back in next summer, assuming that everything goes well.
Correct,
And all this other work can be done while they're physically back in the building?
correct,
And it could still be open?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
This was helpful, thank you, Joe.
so got 2 more, and that's 715 Route 28, the Harbor Complex. And it's 200,
Yeah, so the quick update on that is, this is new to the plan. It is to install a whole building generator, and I know at least one person asked questions about that. And I My answer to that is, I don't have an answer because I was not part of that project. But the question would be, if the building is 4 years old by this point, why do we need a whole building generator? But I don't want to steal someone's question. I'd rather just open it up for discussion and any comments from Mr. Libby.
Why are you looking at me, Joe? I'm only kidding. I raised the question about a brand-new building, especially a public safety building, why it didn't have an emergency generator. The harbor master explained that due to budget reasons, that they couldn't put one in. I do think the harbor master needs an emergency generator. I just wanted to read, we have a price here of $200,000, what he wrote back. I've always been of the opinion that a portable generator that is not, excuse me, constantly exposed to the corrosive waterfront environment would be the better option, portable generator, for the harbor master building. Besides the HVAC system, we don't have much in terms of equipment or our system needs. So what he's basically saying there is, except for the split system which he has, a little bit of lighting, he doesn't need so much. So that's why I see that $200,000 figure. The harbor master's saying he basically could get by with a portable generator to supply his needs. So it just seems to be a little bit of maybe a second look at it. Don't deny he needs a generator.
No, he's a harbor master, and he's not a facilities person, so I've explained it to him. The number that you're seeing is a number that I just pulled as a placeholder, because I don't know.
Right.
And I've had a number of generator companies come take a look, and they don't want to even look at it and give me a cost at this time, because they're saying, look, the building's new, this needs to be engineered. You tell us what you want exactly, and we can look at a price, meaning if it went out to bid. So hearing that, we've gone out for engineering services, and we have an engineering services contract right now with the same company that did the lighting project at White House Field and the tennis courts. He came out on Wednesday of this week, took pictures, wrote down the loads that we're looking at, and he's coming back with a recommendation. And his recommendation to me on the spot was, I will look at a portable. That is definitely the wrong thing for this building. So I'll see what his recommendations come back when they come back in formal writing. But I'm expecting to see probably a 60 kW generator, not costing $200,000, and it'll be put in the parking spot right near.
Fueled by diesel?
Yes, because there's no gas. The only way to get gas there would go through all that new infrastructure, so,
Can you update us when you get a number?
yes.
Thank you.
Let's support the heat.
ADA compliance requirements.
I would say that.
It is not new to the plan, it is not a new number, and I would defer to Sean to explain if needed.
I don't remember the year that we had the study done. I'm looking at, I think
So
it
Sean,
was
you're gonna say-
2018.
Yep.
Okay, I'll find my paper to find that. In 2018, we had a company contracted out to go through all our facilities, all our spaces, to look at ADA requirements. They came back with a book of recommendations. The book of recommendations is being looked at by the committee, is it HARC committee? I forget what the abbreviation stands for
Correct,
now.
the Accessibility Rights Committee,
Yes.
ARC.
They're looking at that to be done. It's been pushed off the last couple of years because of the way the budget has been. It's looking at having it again this year.
And so this would be in multiple facilities, not just
It is the entire
For
town.
the town.
of the town?
Does it include 204 system?
Yes.
Gotta do it.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think this concludes the initial discussion with facilities maintenance. I want to take this opportunity again to thank Link and Sean for taking the time today. I also want to remind the committee of what you heard Link say earlier. Sean has 3 other folks that help him for all of the facilities that exist throughout our town, the vast majority of our physical plant. Not all of the physical plant, but the vast majority of it. So this is an example where the DPW director and our facilities maintenance manager make do with Well, like MacGyver would do, bubble gum, string, and some other item. So I want to thank them publicly for those efforts, and hopefully you folks have had a beneficial conversation. And I would warn the witnesses that the committee always reserves the right to call you back. So then, Mr. Chairman, the only other items I would like to talk about, so I don't know if you want to dismiss them, because
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you, gentlemen. I
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
everything.
And if you have any changes, like we're talking about the engineering study, moving numbers over, whatever you want to do, if you get some real numbers, let us know. If it's minor, then just submit it to Joe. He'll give it to us, and we'll assume that you guys did the right thing. But
We always try to do the right thing, Mr. Chair.
No,
God
Rethink
bless.
your
Thank you, gentlemen.
building.
Have a great weekend.
yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, guys, have a
Hey,
great
next week you show
weekend.
Mr. Chairman, on your agenda, it talks about next, review and update meeting schedule.
Yeah,
However, I would argue that the handout that I distributed to you folks by email earlier this week is physical plant, and if you don't have it, I have copies. And do you need a copy?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And so, oh, sorry Caleb, I'll get back to the mic. So very quickly, this is an ongoing evaluation, analysis, and study that I've been doing. And so it ties back to your discussions on facilities maintenance, but I think to all of your comments, it really ties to the desire that we all have to have transparency on anything that we're working on. And I think I've told each of you over the course of my time here that there are two phrases that motivate the work that I do on a daily basis, and it's the reason why I track the days till town meeting. The charter requires the town administrator to develop a comprehensive budget for the town, so it's not just the operating budget, as might be the case in other towns, it's everything. And so it is capital, it's operating, it's other items, and it ties to community preservation, even though they have that sacrosanct right. I'm also aware, excuse me, I'm also aware that the town has significant insurance needs, liability, if you will. And so administration meets regularly in the fall with MIA, Mass Interlocal Insurance Agency, or MIIA. The best way we think about that is it's the town's insurance agent. And so what they send me soon after the fiscal year is a binder that talks about the insurance policies. But later in the fall, we go over two things that are very key to me: schedule of locations and inventory of vehicles. So from that, I've decided that, I've talked about, for any of you that were here last year, you've heard me talk about it. I'm still striving to get a full plan that is the spreadsheet that you see in front of you, as well as additional documentation, and that's where physical plan comes in. So what you have in front of you is an attempt by me to start to show examples. It is by no means comprehensive. In fact, I'll refer you to the first footnote, which says physical plan, which again, I'm defining, and I think that's important to note that it's my definition. It may not be others, so we want to make sure we're all validating the phrases we use. But that would be the buildings, the grounds, and other items that the town has a responsibility for. So the footnote says that while I would consider these next items to be physical plant, they're not referenced in the items that you see there. And that would be our beaches, cemeteries, pump stations, water towers, and most sheds. And I say most sheds because White House Field is basically sheds beyond the field, and that's in the plan. The other item I would want you to take from that footnote is that for present fiscal year, back that up. In the last fiscal year 2022, Maya, on their schedule of locations, which if memory serves correctly, is about 187 items. So that's why this is by no means complete. I apologize. The total replacement value for the schedule of locations is $103,146,594. That doesn't mean that's how much we have. We have multiple more millions of that figure, but it simply means, for example, God forbid we had to replace any of the items listed there. That's the anticipated replacement value, which for all of them came from the report in 2021. What I'll be getting in the fall is actually the report for 2022, believe it or not. Because it's not fiscal year, it's calendar year. And I want to make one key distinction. The replacement value for the old middle school at 204 Sisson Road was a number that was provided in my binder by Maya as we were contemplating fiscal year '22. So an example would be, well, I don't want to pick any one of them because I don't like to jinx them, but the point is, excuse me, we have a replacement cost on the insurance, and behind that, I have the property cards. The replacement costs, as you would imagine, are far lower than the assessed value, meaning were something to happen to these physical plant items, we would get pennies on the dollar to apply towards replacement. Really what I wanted you to take from that is to just understand first, physical plant. I'm gonna say it more going forward. What do I mean? It's the buildings, the grounds, the sheds, the pump stations, the 100, almost 200 plus items that are referred to on the schedule of location. You will get that schedule of locations. I will just tell you right now on air. It is not in a great format to read, so we're trying to reformat it so it's easy to read. You will also get our list of vehicles. So that's where this all comes from, Mr. Chairman. A lot of this information is gonna tie back to the plan itself, but it's a bigger topic. And then last but not least, you have meetings scheduled in October, but you have not yet contemplated meeting schedules for November. You have 5 members, so I didn't know if you wanted to add for November or if we just want to progress towards your next meeting, which if memory serves correctly is,
Please tell me.
I thought I had it written.
21st.
Thank you, October 21st.
Wow, that's a long way off.
And then October 28th, I think was the second one.
That's right, it's a traveling month, isn't it?
Yep.
Traveling month, town meeting, a couple other things going on. I'll put a simple question out there. For any Fridays in November that aren't holidays, do you want to just assume to meet on those?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
And I made reference to it, but I want to expressly emphasize. You may be aware that the board mercifully has opted to go for a every other week schedule.
Yep.
So it allows staff to get more work done. That means your meeting with them and FinCom jointly is scheduled for Monday, December 5th.
Did we really think we thought it was the 12th before, so now
Correct.
it's the 5th?
Yep. And again, I had 2 choices, 5th or the 19th. I opted for the earlier one
Get
in
over
the
it.
spirit of what we're trying to get done.
So 12/5.
And then last but not least, I think I may have already said that, I gotta work on that, but, Mr. Chairman, I'd also like for you folks to say who you'd like to hear from next.
Okay, so let's get this November calendar set.
I'm not available November 4th. It's the one day I'm not available.
Okay,
So the Fridays in November are what?
11.
4, 11, 18, and 25.
11, a hholiday?
11's a holiday, the
11's a
25th is a holiday.
Could we move them?
How about Mondays?
7, 14, 21, kind of, in November.
How about 11, 14? How many department heads do we have to see? All of them?
Well, I would answer by saying,
The
you've
biggest
heard
ones.
one of the categories. You haven't heard them all, and of course,
Which ones,
the biggest ones would be water, wastewater.
Yeah.
I can reach out to Dan Pelletier to see if his commission could meet on the 24th of October.
We're not here the 24th.
Sorry, the 21st of October, meaning your next meeting. I could also see if the Board of Library Trustees, so you could do, say, the elected boards on October 21st if you wanted. And, you
Okay,
know,
let me ask, the committee, is there any availability until, are there any open dates before 10/21? It just seems we're not wasting, but
That's 3 weeks.
So-
it's 3 weeks.
so, Mr. Chairman, I think part of the,
Is it you?
not only was traveling, was also
Yeah, we.
staff time because of special town meeting.
Oh,
Okay,
you're getting
Yeah,
ready.
because we talked about the 14th, but you asked us to not do that, right?
Correct, yeah.
okay, so
And
no,
yours is
okay,
busy.
so we got October 21st, October 28th, anything in November?
Do you want to make the agenda for those to see if we need other?
I want to get dates that were all available.
So
He'll fill in the
21 and
agenda.
28,
Okay.
We need availability in November.
November.
Is there value in diving into the water, wastewater on October 21st?
Sure.
All right.
So we are talking about the agenda, okay.
Well, on the 21st, I'm still trying to get a date in November.
So.
I mean, right now, we're going to meet October 28th, and then we have December the 5th for the presentation.
But I think
We have the
issue-
whole month of November.
We're
I
meeting
think
on
the
the
issue is
21st first,
Fridays.
right?
Just that November 4th is the one day I
Well,
can't.
but then the
do.
11th is a holiday, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
then
Mondays work, Tuesdays work, Wednesdays work,
Wednesdays do not
Thursdays?
work for me.
Yeah.
Depends
that'll
on the
work for me.
Mondays work?
Monday,
Mondays work.
Monday,
Mondays
Fourth-
Depends on the week.
That's the,
Sorry?
no,
It just depends on the week, that's all.
November
You
14th.
might want to talk to him, it's his team.
7th.
Tuesdays are better than Mondays.
Okay, the 15th.
Well,
What?
November 1st, is that too soon?
No, it's not.
No, because you have to, everything's going to December 5th, right? So we're trying, right?
I will,
Tuesdays are not
I will put out there that
How about November,
How about
November
Thursdays?
8th is the election day, so
So-
we should try to avoid that at all cost.
How about Thursdays?
Ugh.
Pushing Thursdays. Like wide open on Thursdays.
So Thursdays would be November 3rd, 10th, 17th?
Yeah.
Those are the 3 available?
yeah, for me, I'm wide open. I don't,
You good, Mark?
I'm fine.
You good,
Third.
Karen?
The 3rd, I can do it remotely, if, that will have to be set up, but, yeah.
let's do
Third,
November, can you do the 3rd?
3rd?
Thursdays, I would have to do afternoons.
Fine.
Uh,
No? Okay, let's just stay with the 21st and the 28th right now, and as we approach November, let's see what's open. How's
Can we
that?
do a mix in November? Does it have to be?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, if I could,
We may not need-
members could email the chairman, don't email each other, offer some dates, and then Rich and I can work on
Yeah,
the calendar. for
just tell
November.
me how you look in November.
And then, you've got water, wastewater tentatively scheduled for October 21st. Would you also want to have Board of Library Trustees and Library Director?
Can we do that one first and get it over with so she could leave and then
Then
Dan's
what's
gonna take longer?
Sure, it's just whether, because I'm imagining you're working in 2-hour blocks.
Oh. I can work whatever block.
Sure.
Okay, it's the committee. I'm trying to find out what committees are important for us to see. Water and wastewater, yeah, but I'm just looking historically, we've always given, and it doesn't have to happen again, but we've always given the opportunity for department heads who have submitted capital requests to come in and discuss their requests.
Mhm.
So if they've done like 2 of them, and you want to bring 3 or 4 in at one pop, do it. Wastewater is going to take up a lot of time. I don't think it's going to take up as much time as this one.
Right.
You could add 2 little ones,
So we
library.
have a department head meeting before the special.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to ask department heads, these are the dates we're working on. Who wants to come when?
Yeah,
I'd like to hear from golf and IT in either the 21st or 28th. In terms of
Sure.
prioritizing,
I would ask if IT might be the 28th or November, only because Sarah's new and still working on the plan,
Get golf on the
but I think we
28th.
can certainly do golf.
So,
We need the harbor master.
Because, yeah.
We didn't do public works though, road maintenance, they were used just here.
yeah, those are, that one, that, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, like the road maintenance, we get 700 from somewhere and they,
They match it.
and we do
700,000 from
match. So
Chapter
that's like
90.
a normal thing, it's not like
Correct.
we.
Yep.
And one vehicle replacement though, so maybe
That's-
we don't need to see them.
Uh,
We didn't do it, that's.
Can we do the 28th, maybe golf and harbor master?
Yep.
Just see how it works.
So
We
I
have November wide open.
Right. I have water, wastewater on October
24th.
21st.
With the library.
Library, October 21st.
Right,
Golf and Harbor, October 28th.
right.
And I'll just remind the department heads that November is dedicated to all the other folks that want to be heard or that you want to hear from.
And then maybe the school stuff, if you get some kind of update on that at some point.
Yes,
I mean, I don't know when, but that's,
yes.
you know,
That's
whatever.
the middle school,
No,
or the
Oh,
elementary.
No, that would be the
It's the
Monomoy for Ellen. for
Elementary.
Harwich.
we don't vote on it. We don't vote on it. There's,
Grounds, we talked about the grounds.
So for me,
That's just the
Septic.
there's
septic?
been a change
It's
in
just
the
the septic.
capital needs of the town for Harwich Elementary. It is now 100% on the backs of the town of Harwich.
Mhm.
So I am adding it to my plan. Whether you need to have the conversation or not is another question.
okay, I think what's really confusing, at least for me, because historically, this should be 2 pages of every department that has capital requests. Okay? Whether it be one request from the library, so that we know how many departments have sent the 85 or whatever the number of requests that have come in. I think you sent out all the requests, and I think there were 85 of them.
Correct, yep.
All 85 should be on a sheet like this, so that we can tell,
So they are.
But they just,
What
you
are
haven't
they?
finished vetting them.
Say again?
Have you finished vetting them?
No.
That's, so why,
Correct,
that's why they're
right.
not there.
So what's missing is Harwich Elementary School Information Technology.
no, the library's not on here, the
Sorry,
golf is not on here, oh, yes, they are.
It's on there, yeah.
Anything, so what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 department heads on here.
9 out of 30, is that it,
I don't
correct?
know what the number is. All I know is there are 85 requests.
right, and so all of the requests are on the document. Again, for a Brooks Free Library, the only requests that we have are building related. They're not program related. It's on the form, it's in there.
In where? In the request form.
Correct.
And I'm saying that normally we get this sheet with all the requests reflecting the forms. This doesn't have all the forms on it, does it?
I believe the library is still coded as library. That's one of my deliverables, is an update to library. But everything other than information technology, which is pending, and Harwich Elementary, you should have all the forms. Those 85 forms are what populate all of the data fields on the spreadsheet.
Okay, so I'm not counting, but I'm assuming what you're saying is there are a complement of 85 requests.
Correct.
Okay,
Embedded within the document.
okay, so there are no departments that are missing.
IT.
With
No.
the exception of information technology.
But, no, but it's listed and it's gotta be populated.
Correct. And
All I'm saying is,
Harwich.
are there any department heads or departments that have made requests that are not listed on this
No.
sheet?
So where it probably is getting confusing is like the community center is under facilities management. So if Sean has discussed that, we don't really need to talk to the head of the community center.
If the community center has a capital request that isn't within facilities maintenance,
Right,
they should be on here.
Right, and they do not.
we don't.
Their requests are related to facilities maintenance
Okay,
And their other requests are going through CPC, as I understand.
or operating budget.
but we don't care about that.
No, I know, I'm just
Yeah,
stating a fact.
We don't care.
Correct,
And the library is on here, but we have some questions about that.
correct.
It's under facility maintenance, which we have questions on.
Yeah, but not, right, it's under, right. The catch-all is this.
It is.
That's the catch-all. But my bigger question is, are there requests like from the library that isn't a facilities management request? And what Joe is saying, no.
Correct.
So you've captured every department.
Yep.
The majority of requests from the department heads are under facility maintenance.
So if it may help for the benefit of the newest member, the department heads were instructed by me in June to submit all operating, capital, and CPC requests that they contemplate for fiscal year '24, to send those to administration by August 31st. They did. The plan that you've been working on since September 9th reflects all requests received by departments for capital.
Okay.
I have not negated any of them because I wanted to rely upon you and this process for all of us to come to that decision-making.
Okay, Joe, in the past, fire department, police department come in together, it's quick, police department is just, these are just write-offs. Fire, we're gonna be talking about ambulances and another truck probably. So, that November timeframe is how do we fill in if we've done this and we've done water and wastewater, and we've done, or we're doing golf and harbor master, what we have outstanding is fire, police, public works.
Channel 18.
Channel 18's a given.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, if the members are gonna tell you, and this is my request, all available dates that you have in November, if they can distill that through you. Once you and I talk about that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be able to populate back out a calendar to you folks as to who's coming when, because in addition to the departments, we're gonna want a dedicated time to funding. Separate and distinct from requests,
Okay.
so to speak, as well as construction of the final documents to be presented to the joint meeting.
Okay.
So ideally, Joe, if that's the case, and we're gonna go to the joint meeting with the BOS, the Board of Selectmen, on the 5th of November, and the 25th, which is Thanksgiving, isn't an option. We have the 4th and the 18th, and because the 11th of November is a holiday.
What I would
That's
ask
good to
is
go to.
any and all dates that you folks have availability on. So the chairman
Yeah.
can look at it and say if there was a quorum of 4, you may contemplate having that. The 5th member that can't attend,
Ye-
you know,
So what I was getting at is, we have to get to the point, before we can have that meeting with the Board of Selectmen, we have to accomplish our reviews. I'm just trying to, in my own mind.
correct, you have
so
to do your
We
reviews.
have to finish our reviews, we have to vote, right?
Well, what I would suggest is you finish your reviews, you contemplate priorities. The priorities then have funding, then you have final votes.
Priorities, then funding, we have to have one meeting, you said, to have a funding discussion.
Right.
And then we need to vote. I'm just trying to back into that.
Yep.
And
So
then,
review, prioritize, funding, approve.
yeah, and so if that's the case, yeah, so, yeah, we got some work to do, so, in the second, obviously, then. So we just have to
Got-
back, we have to
We've
back
got
into.
7 open committees
Mhm.
for the sake of administration, Channel 18, engineering, fire department, police department, IT, and public works.
Yeah, missing from that, though, is the elementary school.
In the library.
And is Kara gonna come up with some capital requests this year for the cultural?
No, she's already done that exercise.
Okay, so whatever's in there, it's just the
Correct.
building kind of stuff. She's
Correct.
not coming back with anything
Again,
else.
that's all predicated on, we assume nothing changes.
Okay.
Yeah. If we can squeeze in, like on the 28th, 2 more.
Sure,
I mean, administration, Channel 18,
yep,
you know,
absolutely.
take a look and just,
Yep, definitely.
I don't want to depend, we got, as Karen was saying, we got a lot of work to do in November to get to December. And normally that presentation, we just watch you
Right.
present it.
Now, I want to also emphasize, on Monday, October 3rd, excuse me, I'll be updating again for the board the financial assessment and outlook for fiscal year 2024. Now, November becomes a critical month because we typically set our tax rate, so that's going to give me an understanding of what the levy amount will be. We go to about 99.8% of the available levy, so that's a big number to understand. Free cash has been requested to be certified. We hope to have that number in October, but we'll certainly have it by November. So a lot of that discussion, we may end up having to go in front of the board on December 5th and having a follow-up meeting of this meeting based on, this committee based on that output.
Let me ask,
So numbers are still coming in because we're still early in the present fiscal year.
let me ask you, Joe, I mean, we start at 10, we start at 9. Any problem starting at 9 o'clock?
None.
You got a problem starting at 9? Well, we gain an hour, we can add 2 more on each and write this thing off so that we have a fairly open November calendar to get the real work done, like evaluation, priorities, and so forth. So why don't we ask to go to 9?
Yep.
And, I mean, we're here 2.5 hours already.
Right.
You know, let's make it 3.5 and get more done. So, that's it?
Can I ask one other question in
No.
terms of the, no, stop. I know at some point, and I know this is on you, but you have to kind of figure out last year's request to this year's request and the deltas as we get to town meeting. That's gonna happen later. Because technically all we're supposed to be doing is adding 2008.
Well, I think the way that the chair referenced it, bylaw charter review has an understanding that, amendments are more related, I think, to what the chairman said used to happen in years past. After the plan is developed, an amendment to that. So after we present to the board and the finance committee and the 3 entities say, this is our plan, amendments to that require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, so that
We
will
are
be
not
figured out when the
contemplating
plan's
any of
finalized.
those, correct.
Okay, all right. Just
Do I hear a motion?
a motion to adjourn.
Seconded. Aye.
Aye. That's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.